the match. So good afternoon and a good evening as well in Sri Lanka. So today we have the match between two universities for the last day of the group phase. Two universities which are Reykjavik University in Iceland and the University of Colombo in Sri Lanka. So the two teams are here. So my name is Aurélien Lorange, and Ms. Urbanova and my colleague as well, Mr. Mustafa, will be hosting this match, the three of us today. And of course, we'll know the outcome of this group phase for your group, because there are four teams. So University of University of Colombo, Reykjavik University, Western University in Canada, and as well, the fourth team, and then we'll be having the result at the end of next week, because the two other teams have their match as well in a few days from now. So I will give the floor now to Mr. Mustafa, who will be the host for this match.
Yes, thank you for the floor. Hello, everyone. My name is David Mustafa. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Hague International, which is also one of the projects of Corax Foundation, and I will be your host for today. So, as per usual, we will start with a round of introductions so that we can get familiar with each other, and also viewers through YouTube can also get familiar with us. And then we will continue with the preparation phase, and then we will go into the debate. So I would like to kindly invite everyone to give a short introduction of themselves and name and the university they represent. I will be picking you right now. So we can go first with Ms. Gamage.
Everyone, I'm Tharushi Gamage. I'm currently a final year undergraduate at the Faculty of Law of University of Colombo from Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Going forward with Ms. Abe Wikrama.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mitmutu Abe Wikrama, currently a final year undergraduate of the Faculty of Law of University of Colombo, Sri Lanka.
Yes, thank you for your introduction. Going forward with Mr. Maron.
Hello everyone, I'm Martin from the Reykjavik University, where I'm taking part in an exchange. I'm in my second year of Master of Law.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Snap.
Hi everybody. Just like Martin, I'm taking part of an exchange here in Reykjavik Reykjavik University, and I'm also in my second year of Master of Law.
Thank you. And perhaps the professor of Snola.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to be on camera here, but anyway, my name is Snjólaug Árnadóttir. I'm an assistant professor and coach of the Reykjavik University team.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your introduction. I will read the topic of today's debate, which is the access to international agreements by non-democratic governments should be denied. I will give the floor back to Mr. Lorange, who will draw the wheel, and then on we will continue. After we have the result, we will continue with the preparation phase.
Yes. So we share my screen, so you can see what on YouTube they will see, meaning the wheel with the different positions. So as you can see, there are two possibilities for each university. You can be in favor or against. So now we'll just click and you will know which position you will have during the debate. So this is Reykjavik University will have the position in favor. So it means as a consequence, Colombo will be as well being against this motion. So concretely, Reykjavik University will be starting with actually defining the position that indeed the access to international agreements by non-democratic governments should be denied, and Colombo will be defending the opposite. It should not be denied. Voilà. So you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. The 5 minutes have passed.
Yes. So I hope you all had some time to prepare your arguments. We will start with the University of Reykjavik. So in that sense, I would like to invite the representative from University of Reykjavik to submit their introduction, which will be 4 minutes. And yes, good luck.
So, dear judges, dear opposing counsel, it's a great pleasure to appear in front of you today for this last match of the group phase of the tournament. My name is Maxime Snap, and I'll be joined today by my colleague Martin Marron for this match to explain why the access to international agreements by non-democratic governments should be denied. There's much to say about today's topic, and I go first by explaining that the requirement is already applied, and afterwards I will explain how it can be used as an incentive to respect democracy. Mr. Marron will then develop his arguments about the exclusion used as a lever to urge countries to be more democratic, as well as the necessity to exclude non-democratic states. First, the democratic criterion has been used throughout history in diverse agreements, such as NATO, EU, and the Council of Europe. In the case of NATO, the condition is implicit, as it's only mentioned in the preamble of the organization founding treaty. Based on that, the rejection of Spain under Franco's fascist regime until 1982 makes sense, even though it wasn't explicit. Nonetheless, it can be explicit, just like in the Treaty on European Union that mentions the criterion of democracy in its preamble, its basic value found at Article 2, and its condition to access the Union found at Article 49 by reference to Article 2. This might explain in a certain measure why countries like Turkey and Serbia have pending applications to join the Union, but are still waiting, probably for the longest time. We can also mention a very concrete example based on the Article 8 of the Statute of the Council of Europe. In the 60s, very quickly after the colonel's coup d'etat in Greece, the Council of Europe purely and simply excluded the country from its organization because of that article. This brings me to my second point. We believe that the total exclusion of the international stage by denying access to international agreement is a great tool, and that it must be used after a staggering of sanctions, just like today with Russia. Indeed, in the Council of Europe, Russia hasn't been excluded from the Council, but suspended from the Parliamentary Assembly and the Committee of Ministers. This way of doing is a good step for international security and democracy, because we estimate that it avoids situations where the Russian officials can influence decisions taken by the Council of Europe. At the same time, Russia still remains subject to the respect of human rights, which is the principal goal of the Council of Europe, and whose respect is the basis of democracy. Eventually, in the meantime, between suspension and expulsion, we think that the subsidiary use of techniques such as boycott or other economic sanctions is an effective way of incenting the respect of democracy at a national and international level. Plus, it can make it possible to initiate real movement of social protest or governmental reforms, as we saw during the apartheid era in South Africa. And history seems to be by our side here. Thank you for listening to my explanation, and I shall now pass the speaking to my colleagues from the University of Colombo.
Yes, thank you very much for your submissions. I would like to invite the representative from the University of Colombo to submit their introduction. Equally, you have 4 minutes. Good luck.
Before I begin my speech, may I confirm whether I'm clearly audible and visible? Thank you. Good evening, dear judges and my friends on the proposition. We recognize that democracy enshrines the will of the people, which shall be the basis of the authority of the government at both national and international platforms. We further recognize that democracy is intertwined with a range of fundamental human rights. Thus, we value the priority given by the proposition towards democracy, but we will have to respectfully oppose. I'm Metmutua Baby Krimmer, presenting the debate with my colleagues Arshi Gamage and Kalna Hera. We make ourselves present here today to argue against the motion of the access to international agreements by non-democratic governments should be denied. We first point out several structural flaws of the proposition statement. In setting the parameters of the debate, they did not define several crucial terms of the motion. The term access was not explained. They did not define what international agreements they are referring to. And they did not define non-democratic governments either. Therefore, we as the opposition, respectfully disagree with the proposal brought by the opponent team due to the following reasons. As the first argument, we say that ostracization is ineffective at doing what the proposition claims it wants to do, especially if the international agreements denied from are economic, as the incentive for higher economic gain will exacerbate the problems below. It will allow richer and more powerful nations to oppress and ostracize weaker ones, such as Palestine being cut off of funds by the United States by applying the democratic precondition arbitrarily. For example, Venezuela was burdened and threatened to alter its economic policy under threat of suspension by Mercosur. Ostracization will set a bad precedent for the future, and it will isolate victims of dictatorial regimes, that is, their citizens, from the international community, and will allow states to continue with external impunity, similar to the situation of North Korea. If an autocratic country is denied foreign aid, as a consequence, it is not the governments or elites that will be affected by that, but it is the most vulnerable citizens of that country who will be affected by such a measure because they will be cut off with the benefits. Further, ostracization will undermine the power of those agreements as less nations will be party to them. Also, it will make it difficult for agreements to be ratified and will complicate matters when countries are added and removed periodically. Therefore, rather than denying access to international agreements, there will be simply much more convenient and suitable methods where minimal effort is required, but equally minimal possible outcomes will be apparent with minimal negatives. As the second argument, we see that better alternatives with less weaknesses are available to promote democracy. As the first alternative, promoting and strengthening the enforcement of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights will uphold and strengthen democracy overall. Secondly, we see that the answer is more access to international agreements and not less. There is potential for regional organizations with more cohesive human rights policies due to the communication reasons for adopting human rights norms to intervene in their sphere of influence in humanitarian crisis. A better, more just and effective sanctions regime too would promote democracy, using agreements as a leash to punish non-democratic states and using peer pressure to the international community will promote democracy. Therefore, due to the reasons that we mentioned, we respectfully oppose with the proposal brought by the proposition. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to invite now the representative from the University of Reykjavik to start their first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, dear judges, dear colleague from Sri Lanka. I would like to follow up on the point just made by my colleague from the University of Colombo, supporting that the opponent acknowledges the importance of human rights. First, the position that the opponent takes is just not acceptable, since it implies a total rejection of fundamental human rights, stemming, I recall, from almost 100 years ago. Do you have authority supporting your interpretation? Because this proposal for exclusion is perfectly in accordance with international law, insofar as the international community cannot be accused of interfering in the internal affairs of the state concerned, which is expressly prohibited by Article 2, Paragraph 7 of the United Nations Charter. The will to install a democratic state must indeed come from within and cannot be imposed by the international community, despite all the efforts it may make. Or try to convince Kim Jong-un in North Korea or the Taliban government in Afghanistan that they would benefit from the establishment of elections by universal suffrage with the risk of being replaced at the head of the state by free and fair elections. Indeed, it is naive to think that the international community can change the situation by small means without the powerful argument of the exclusion. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your submissions. I would like to invite the representative from the University of Colombo to start their first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Before I begin, may I confirm that I'm both clearly audible and visible? Thank you. Honorable judges, one main point to be rebutted in this debate. It is argued by the proposition that this approach is effective and pragmatic and would act as an incentive to compel those non-democracies to turn themselves into more democratic governmental structures. But saying this, the proposition clearly failed to provide any empirical evidence so as to prove their argument. Despite the ostracization policies used against the atrocities in North Korea, we have seen that the North Korean government continues to deny its findings and refuses to cooperate with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Another example is where the United States imposed pervasive sanctions on the Venezuelan economy and conducted a vast diplomatic campaign against the Maduro regime there. Yet their policy failed to dislodge Maduro to improve the human rights situation in Venezuela or to bring democracy into that country. Therefore, as the opposition, we believe that it is evident that such ostracization policies are very much ineffective in compelling those autocratic governments to change themselves into democratic governmental structures. Often they would end up becoming more rogue nations. Also, dear judges, as the opposition, we believe that there are other alternatives which could be utilized to preserve the same interests without imposing the requirement of democracy because it is ineffective and discriminatory. One way is to promote and strengthen the enforcement of UDHR and ICCPR, which will ultimately uphold and strengthen the democracy overall. Another way is to improve the weaknesses in the UN human rights enforcement mechanisms. Therefore, as the opposition, we believe that the answer is more access to international agreements, not less. For those reasons, we strongly oppose. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your submissions. Now it's time to go to the second round of the debate. I would like to invite the representative from the University of Reykjavik to submit their second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to recall the argument of my colleague from the University of Colombo. Indeed, they seem to be in the view that the exclusion would be a sanction rather than an incentive. The thing is that what should we do then? Should we turn a blind eye on Russia's act in Ukraine or on China's persecution of Uyghurs? Should we act like nothing happens? Exclusion is a strong word, but in practice, it would apply to international agreements, not to international discussions. In that way, the exclusion is a great argument, but it is applied together with other measures to urge countries to be more democratic. About that, I would be glad to hear what such powerful and efficient arguments you would propose. The thing is that no other proposal would be as effective as the incentive exclusion. The exclusion simply responds to a crying need for justice all over the world, because democracy is indeed the most fair and respectful model for human rights, and goes hand in hand with the notion of the rule of law. It is unacceptable that in the 21st century, right as essential as the right to life, the prohibition of slavery and torture, the right to vote, to name a few, these rights are still being denied in some places in the globe. Models other than democracy simply and automatically go against these fundamental rights enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The question of how it should be implemented, as I said before, is that it should not be implemented as a sanction, but as an incentive. The democratic states must have the approach of saying, if you want to be with us in the international scene, be more democratic. And that should be indeed the argument in force. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you for your submissions. Now I would like to invite the representative from Colombo University to give their second round of rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
May I first confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, you are audible.
All right. Due to pervasive connection issues and technological obstacles that you're facing right now, I can't really turn on my camera. Although I will do as much as I can to keep up the liveliness of the debate throughout. Now, if you want to be included in the international scheme, be more democratic. These were the words uttered by the second speaker, and they called us naive for trying to think of more long-term and pragmatic solutions. We at no point ever concluded that the effective and the most effective way forward is for nothing to be done at all. In fact, we have far better approaches that we are about to suggest. First, of course, is that due to the very intricately intertwined nature of human rights and democracy, we would like to suggest that human rights are best preserved when they are enforced, and the enforcement of these mechanisms is the best method to go forward with that. And internationalization and globalization help in this regard, as we have seen in Venezuela and Germany. In Venezuela, we saw a foil form of this, of course, because sanctions notoriously and quite famously hurt poor and marginalized individuals and not regimes. This was the opposite in Germany, where after the Second World War, of course, as we know, a more internationalized and globalized structure was built up to ensure human rights and fairness, and of course, democracy, as we saw before. This is also true when it comes to international agreements that support technology, communication, and other forms, which would allow propaganda and all other misinformation drives to be suppressed due to the internationalization of networks and global communication. And then the final concluding argument that we'd like to bring up is that the most effective alternative is to commercialize the citizens of that nation, of the regime that is undemocratic, as we've seen, through measures that enrich them. And with that being said, please do oppose.
Yes, thank you very much for your submissions. Now it's time for concluding remarks. I would like to invite the representative from the University of Reykjavik to provide their conclusion. You have 2 minutes.
So, dear judges and opposing counsel, like we said, the access to international agreements should seriously take into account the democratic criterion as a way to protect the international order and make the international community a real vector of benefits for mankind, and strongly avoid the complacent behavior such as the one defended by the University of Colombo. With that being said, and regarding our arguments related to the development of the protection of democratic values in the scope of international organizations, the possible staggering of sanctions, the lever effect of the exclusion and its necessity, as well as the counter-arguments brilliantly raised by Mr. Marron, the Reykjavik University team respectfully asks the judges to hold in favor of its argument. Thank you all again for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much. Now I would like to invite the representative from Colombo University to provide their conclusion. You have 2 minutes.
Honorable judges, I will now state our conclusion for why we say the access to international agreements by non-democratic governments should not be denied. Even though we firmly believe that establishing democracy within the international community is of vital importance, one must understand that the mode which you are using to have that specific outcome must not be erroneous or impractical. The proposition asks whether we have to turn a blind eye to those actions from non-democratic governments. The answer is simply no, because we see as the opposition that there are other better effective ways to have the same outcome with minimal negative effects. Also, as the opposition, our speakers clearly convince you which sort of structural and procedural flaws are existing in the ostracization policy brought up by the proposition. We showed you how richer and more powerful nations can use this policy to oppress and ostracize weaker nations in order to execute their political agendas. And also, we showed you how such policy would ultimately lead to continued violation of human rights in those countries and how it would ultimately affect on innocent citizens rather than those non-democratic rulers. We brought numerous examples to support these views, including the situation in North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela. However, at all those instances, we see the proposition failed to provide us empirical evidence so as to prove that their policy would work. Also, even they reiterated the importance of human rights, we showed you how their policy would ultimately end up hurting their own citizens in those non-democratic governments. Even though the proposition argued that their policy is perfectly in accordance with international law, democracy is not even a precondition for UN membership. Under those circumstances, we firmly oppose bringing such ineffective policies into practice. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your conclusion. Okay, so the match has come to an end. Now it's time for some reflections and feedback. So first, I would like to ask you about your opinion on this match. And then I would like to ask you on your experience so far and your progress that you've been doing in the matches so far. But first, let's start with feedback specifically on this match. We can start with Ms. Gamage.
Yes, I think you all can hear me very clearly. First of all, I must thank the Corax Foundation for organizing such a very amazing tournament so that the opportunity for people like us are given to engage in more debates. And also, with regarding to this debate, I must say that the opponent team came up with really good arguments, and we saw that they had done a very good research before coming to this debate. So we would like to wish them good luck.
Yes, thank you. Proceeding with Mr. Mahon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your compliments. I think as well that your arguments were so great. I personally think that the position of the pros was a bit complicated for me. At least I'm trying here to be honest. And yeah, I think the match was great, and the opposing team had really great arguments and great rebuttals. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Proceeding with Ms. Abe Wikama.
Yes, as my colleague mentioned, I would like to thank the Corax Foundation for organizing such a tremendous debate. And we got the opportunity of getting to know other colleagues from other universities and from other countries. And I also would like to wish the opponent team for doing such an amazing research and doing such a great debate with us. It was really great. Yes, I wish all of you good luck, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Snap?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for the debate. It was very stimulating. The topic was typically my kind of topic, so I was really happy about it. And yeah, like Martin said, yes, we both of us were more into the con, but we we defended the best way possible, the pro side. And yeah, it was a very, like I said, very stimulating debate. And congrats for all your arguments. And I wish you good luck too.
Yes, thank you. And finally, Mr. Gerard.
First of all, I'd like to concur with our counterpart colleague, Martin Mahon, that this was indeed a very ambiguous debate in the sense that the topic had a lot of layers to it and ambiguities to it. So we fully commiserate with that. But other than that, they put up a great fight, and we're happy to take part in this again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your feedback. Okay, now it's time for some reflections on your previous experience so far. It could be anything, something new that you learned, or something that you did not expect, or something that you were prepared for and turned out to be differently. We can start the same, same queue. So, Ms. Gamage?
I think our team also improved quite a lot during the whole tournament. And we learned a lot of things regarding how to research for a particular topic, because at the initial stage, we didn't have a clear understanding about researching. But when it's come to the third debate, our team was clearly understanding how to do a proper research for a particular debate topic. And I think in overall, we had a very good experience out of this tournament.
That's great to hear. It's good to know that you've learned something from this experience. Mr. Mahon?
Yes, I think also that this tournament helps a lot to find ways to make research in interesting researches. Personally, it's my first participation to such a debate. I'm still curious to see how it would be in real and not in virtual. But yeah, it's already a good improvement, I think, to make this kind of matches. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we're all also looking quite forward to see how this will play out in the face-to-face. But thanks for your feedback. Proceeding with Ms. Abe Wikrama.
Yes, I agree with what my colleague actually mentioned. So starting from the first day of practicing for the debate, we actually learned a lot, because I think we have quite improved a lot when we look at the first debate that we did at the Scorex Foundation. And also, I think even in terms of the theoretical arguments and the structural improvements that we made, we got to know a lot of more things, because we knew what the theory should be laid out in a debate like this, and what kind of stylistical requisites we should have for a debate like this. So I think we learned a lot, and it was a really good experience so far.
Glad to hear that. Thank you. Mr. Snap?
Yeah, I won't be very original. It was obviously a very good experience. I can see from my research for the first match and my research now that it's completely different. I feel more at ease with it, and also it taught me about getting straight to the point rather than write more and more to get to my point, because obviously 2 minutes or 4 minutes is very short. So in a sense, that was a challenge, but a welcome challenge. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you for the great experience.
Glad to hear that. Thank you. Mr. Gerard?
So of course, I have to say that the biggest challenge I face throughout this competition is the time constraint, right? And that is because throughout my life, I've been used to longer speeches and sort of droning out and spilling my heart out, as you would say, right? So that has been the greatest challenge for me. And even though these have been like very short and briefly timed debates with, very short intervals in between them, it has nevertheless been quite a life-changing, experience for us, as it did build up our camaraderie between our, fellow students, as well as possible few share international prospects of camaraderie as well. And so with that, it has been a very enriching experience, and it's really the memories that count.
Yes, I agree with you. It's really good. It's really interesting that you guys see this as a challenge, and it's new for you, because in that way you will learn more. And I have to say my final remarks. Of course, we will go into the feedback from Mr. Orange and Ms. Urbanova. But before we do that, I would like to, let's say, offer you guys an opportunity to publish your findings. Obviously, you've done a lot of research so far. It's really good research, and it would be a shame if this research was not used or developed further. So for that reason, I invite you guys to consider about submitting part of this research. It can be up to 1,000 words. It doesn't have to be very elaborate, of course. If you want to elaborate on it, be more than welcome. But I'm saying that it doesn't need to be super, super shiny in the beginning. We will help you out. We will support you in every step. And why not make this research an interesting publication, which of course would give you some recognition in the legal community. We post everything on social media, on LinkedIn. We have our own website, Instagram, Facebook. So in that sense, your publication will be very vivid. And why not? You can enrich your CV, by doing this publication. So feel free. You are more than welcome to submit part of your research, and we can help you out. And yes, you're more than welcome to do this. Now, finally, I will pass the floor to Mr. Lorange for his feedback, and then to Ms. Urbanova. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa, as well, for hosting the match. It was a really, I would say, a good way actually to finish indeed with the third match for each team, because indeed in this group E, indeed you were with as well a Canadian university from near Toronto, let's say, and one team as well from South Africa. So this was the name I missed last time, from the University of the Free State. So indeed, four universities for two. I would say positions for the next round, which will be the 8th of final, because we are concluding now the group phase. So it was like mini championship in each group, and now we are going to be in mid-May, indeed, for the elimination phase until the final, of course, in the end of June. So yes, so everything you have done until now, of course, will account for the progression to the next stage. So it means all the teams, of course, they will be informed at the same time of the ranking for this group E, and knowing that if you finish at the first place, you will meet a team who finish at the second place. If you finish at the second place, you will meet a team who finish at the first place in another group which is next to yours. So it will be all, of course, published at the same time, so you will know the exact position, the match, of course, you will have in case you are among the two best teams. And as well for the teams who might not be among the two best teams, we will send certificates signed, of course, by the organizers, certifying that you participated to this competition, that you can use obviously for playing for masters or for jobs or whatever you would like. As well, you can mention in your LinkedIn or on your CV as well that you participated to this competition. There will be some other activities as well that we'll prepare to make sure that the community of the participating teams as well can continue to interact. But yes, so it is let's say already a first part of the competition, which is finishing for the teams, and now there will be a new type of competition for the elimination phase. Obviously, means you need to win every match to get to the final and win the competition with a trophy shipped, let's say, to you in case you win. And there are as well other trophies, trophies for the second best team in final, trophy for the best oralist. So voila, so it's just a few elements to expect already, but it was already a pleasure to have seen already 3 matches for each of you. We had to sometimes indeed find alternative for the schedule, etc., but we managed every time. And I want as well to tell that I appreciate very much the fair play that all teams have between them to indeed be understanding that it is a competition on different time zones, as well internet connections as well can be always, not always optimal, but everybody is understanding, so it's a great on many aspects. So now the floor to my colleague, Mr. Bonova.
Thank you, and thank you to both teams. It's been immense pleasure to see you progress from the day 1 up until day 3, and indeed you had one of the more challenging schedules from the teams participating in the competitions, as you had a match every 2 weeks since the competition started. And well done for the research and for the presentation of your arguments. I would just follow up on the ranking of the group, so you can expect the results from the match earlier, but the ranking of the group will be released around 28th of April, as the University of Western Ontario and University of the Free State have their match early, or actually late morning on the 28th due to exam conflicts in the schedule. So that on that side. And of course, no matter the results of the match, we are very happy to welcome you to every project and event that we will be organizing. And we hope to see both teams in the networking event that will be connecting all the teams. So you will see some familiar faces, and we'll be able to interact outside of a typical match format. So once more, well done. Thank you for your preparation and the execution of your debates. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and the results will come in a few days. Huh? So we spoke with the judge to tell them it's very important to have indeed the results on time, so we can announce, of course, for the next stage to everybody the complete results. Voilà. So thank you in Iceland, thank you in Sri Lanka, and of course we keep in touch for the next days. Thank you. Have a good weekend as well. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.